So, if you've seen the full-length preview already for the upcoming classic auction at Morris Leslie, and you've seen the Volkswagen Golf Mark II VR6 video that will already be up by now, then you know what's coming, because next up on the block is this. It's a 1974 Jensen Interceptor 3 Series 4, if that doesn't make things confusing enough for you already. But before we talk about this specific car, let's have a quick history lesson on the Interceptor in general. They were first launched in 1966 as a replacement to the then aging Jensen CV8. The Interceptor name itself came from a previous pre-war Jensen model, but was then revived to bring this into the game. It was intended as a bit of a Grand Tourer replacement to the CV8, something a little less hard-edged, something a little more luxurious and long-legged, as it were. So there were 3 series, like I just said. The first came along in 1966, then was followed by the Mark II in 1969, and then came along the Mark III in 1971. That is the most common because they made the most of them, but the differences are small between them. The first lot were more of a hand-built feeling. They combined the Italian design, the British engineering, and the American power plant, which we'll get onto a little bit later, and built them in Italy. And again, like I say, Italian design is great. Italian build quality wasn't always that amazing. So eventually for the Mark II and the Mark III, they were moved back to the UK and they were built locally to a little bit better repute, as it were. They came in 3 body styles. You had the coupe, which this one is, albeit with this lovely vinyl roof and Webasto top. You had the convertible, quite a bit rarer, which is pretty self-explanatory. And you had the fixed head, which a lot of people hear fixed head and they think coupe. That's what I thought as well. But it turns out the body style was a little bit different because the fixed head actually got rid of one of the Interceptor's most famed features, and that is this lovely glass rear window. As you can see, it wraps all the way around, and it became a really massive selling point for this car, and I mean massive, because this piece of glass is absolutely huge. These days, it can be pretty tricky to replace if you're unfortunate enough to break them, but even still, this is fully heated, and if I just go in here real quick, you can pull a little lever, which took me a second to find, and the entire hatch hinges up and opens out of the way to reveal what is actually quite a capacious boot. Once you are in here, you've got this lovely soft-lined integrated privacy cover, which is good because, again, massive bit of glass will give you quite a bit of visibility in here to any passers-by. But the space itself is actually pretty big. You could fit, I reckon, probably 1 Lucas in here if you're lucky and maybe break a leg or 2. But besides that, what else we've got in here is a lovely set of 8 tracks too. There's an entire box chock full of them, and my particular favourite was this one. It's a little bit of Sinatra, but my way. Fun fact about this, actually. Do you know that David Bowie's Life on Mars was actually meant to be a parody? He got annoyed that the writers gave it to Sinatra instead of him, and so Life on Mars is sort of poking fun at this, but that's all by the by. But speaking of Sinatra and 8-track, let's have a look at the interior, shall we? So I'll just pop that in there. We won't listen because we'll get copyright struck. But once you're in here, for a large car, it's surprisingly cramped. This seat I've managed to adjust all of 2 ways. It goes forwards, backwards, and the back reclines. This is about as far back as it goes. My knee is trapped between the door and the steering wheel, and just as I closed this door before we started rolling, I stabbed myself in the knee with this indicator, and actually I think we were rolling, so feel free to cut that in if I wasn't swearing. But once you're actually in here, the main focus was for things to be a little bit more refined, a bit more luxurious. So you've got these big, cushiony, pillowy seats, and they are really comfortable, if a bit cramped. I don't really have any headroom, as I'm sure you can see my head butting up against this sun visor, but there's this massive wide dash full of all the switches you could want to shake a stick at. You actually got AC in this car, which again was pretty early for that. We got a little switch down here. It's not climate control, you can't set a temperature, but you got warm, hot, cool or cold to choose from. So there's a little defroster should you get desperate. But yeah, it's a nice place to be. It's simple enough, but definitely complex for the era, if that makes sense. And while there are seats in there in the back, if you're any taller than about 5'5", you're not going to be able to get behind anyone of any significant size sitting in the front. In here we also do have a nice little convenient glove box. There's actually a tax disc here from, what is that, 2014? Nice. And another one from 2013. Someone's keeping up with their bills, that's good. But actually, the highlight of this little glove box, besides a couple of screws I can see, is a piece of a plaque here that's got some general data on it, which gives you things like tyre information, max load rating, inflation, things like that. But that's all by the by. Let's get on to the actual party piece, which sits up front. It is a 7.2 litre or 440 cubic inch for your septic tanks out there. V8, Chrysler-derived V8, absolutely massive lump. Supposed to have, at least in period, 280 horsepower, which actually for an American V8 of the era is actually quite strong. Because quite a few of them back then, especially after the 1973 gas crisis, got knocked back to low 200s, high 100s. So this is quite a powerful lump as they go. But unfortunately, that aforementioned gas crisis or oil crisis, whatever you want to call it, did affect pretty much every American car out there, and as a knock-on effect did affect this too. So unfortunately the Interceptor died in 1976, but it's not dead forever, because I don't know if you've heard, but very recently Jensen Motor Company is being brought back for an as yet unrevealed Jensen GT, which is supposed to be styled as a modern homage to this very car. But if you want the real thing, this is it, and it's up for sale. That's the 21st of February, 11 AM, right here, Errol Airfield at Morris Leslie Auctions. So make sure you come down a little bit before, then you can get a proper look around the thing. But in the meantime, we'll see you there. Take it easy, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.